Our next speaker is Mr. Adebola Omololu. He's the CEO of Afriscaper. Afriscaper is a property and infrastructure service marketplace that aims to build trust and provide transparency in Africa's property market, starting with Nigeria, Africa's largest economy. Adebola, if you would join me, please.
I think I'll be more comfortable down here. Good afternoon, everyone. I need more energy in the room. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, TFE, for the opportunity to actually speak at this event. My name is Adebola, and today I will just go through a few things with you today about investing in Africa. So I'm just going to give you an overview, and we can talk better one-on-one much later. I will talk about, I'll give you an overview about the African continent. Some people say I'm a storyteller. So we're going to go through a story within the next 30 minutes. Also, I will talk specifically about China, Africa, investments, and opportunities. And then I'll also tell you my own opinion and thoughts on where to invest in and what to invest in. Okay, so let's go. I usually like to start with this picture because this is of Kigali in Rwanda. That's the aerial view. I use Kigali in Rwanda because 20 years ago, Rwanda suffered from one of the worst genocides that this world has probably seen in the last 100 years. And in 20 years, this is what that city looks like now. So this just gives you an indication as to how things change so quickly and why the perceptions you probably have about the continent, they're probably very wrong. So Africa is urbanizing, incomes are rising. So the question is, so what? What do I need to know, or what do I need to learn about the African continent to do business in Africa? There are 53 countries on the continent. If my geography is correct, and I remember correctly, there are 42 countries in Europe. There are, I think, 22 countries in South America. There are 3 countries in North America. Asia, forgive me, I think it is 48, thereabouts. Does anyone know? Can you correct me? I'm not sure. I think it's 48 countries in Asia. The African continent has 53. 1.5 billion people, has the fastest population growth rate in the world as well. 2,000 languages, 5,000 dialects. It's the second largest continent and has the world's youngest population with 55% of the population less than the age of 20. In this map, I have shown, using color codes, the different sections of the part of Africa so that it's easy to refer to. You will sometimes hear people say North Africa, Southern Africa, East Africa, West Africa. This map actually gives you an indication. The upper part there in purple is North Africa, consists of countries like Egypt, Libya, and a few others. You'll see in green, that's the western part of Africa. You also have Central Africa in purple over there, and at the bottom, Southern Africa. This is just like a visual representation of the entire continent. In terms of economies, this gives you an idea as to the GDP of each of the countries. Nigeria is Africa's largest economy, with a GDP of almost $600 billion. It is expected that the country it's currently, I think, the 22nd largest economy in the world. And it's expected that it's going to be number 12 within the next 10 years. So it's growing very rapidly. South Africa is the second largest. Then you have Egypt and a few others. Algeria, Angola, Morocco, Sudan, Kenya, Ethiopia, etc. So these are the top 15 economies on the continent so far. Like I said, I'll share these slides later so you can, and TFE Insight is also now available. So if you want to know more about the size of the different economies, go to TFE Insights. There's also this information about Africa by business language, because some people actually don't know what languages are spoken on the continent. I hear some people ask me, but you speak English. I thought everybody in Africa spoke French. Not necessarily the case. This map shows you, again, remember that I said something. There are 2,000 languages on the continent. So you have most of the local languages, but in addition to that, for business purposes, many of the countries actually speak specific languages, such that if you speak that language, you're comfortable anywhere on the continent. So you can see here, out of the 54 countries, 6 of them speak Arabic as their major means of business communication. 4 countries speak Arabic and French. So I guess with Arabic, you're comfortable in 10 countries thereabouts. 14 countries speak French out of the 54, and another 2 countries speak English and French. Generally speaking, English is the major, if you were to count by number of countries that speak and number of people that speak the language, English tends to be the major language spoken on the continent. So you have 15 countries that speak English, purely English, as their business language. Another 3 that speak English and Swahili. 2 countries speak English and Arabic. Portugal or Portuguese, 3 countries speak Portuguese. 2 countries speak Spanish, and 1 country speaks Amharic. Now, this is a slide that I always try to put up to show the size of the African continent. Unfortunately, if you look at the map of the world on a globe, the way it is today, it doesn't actually reflect the true size of the African continent. In this slide, what we've done is to superimpose individual countries onto the landmass of the African continent to show you how big it actually is. Because many people make the mistake and think it's just one country. It's a continent and it is massive. If you were to take the whole of Western Europe, all the countries in Western Europe, and put on Africa, take the United States, take China, take the whole of Eastern Europe, take India, take Mexico, and put it on the African continent, the entire space that all those countries will take is 30.1 million square kilometers. The African continent, size-wise, is actually 30.2 million square kilometers. That's how big it is. For example, my home country is Nigeria, and I live, or used to live primarily in Lagos. Lagos to London, so that's Lagos to London. London is to the north of the map, is about 5 hours, 6 hours. However, Lagos to, say, Cape Town, which is also, Cape Town is also on the African continent. It's somewhere, Cape Town is somewhere here. Lagos is somewhere here, right? So just from here to here is about 10 hours by air. So it's easier for me to travel from here to London, somewhere around here, 5 hours, than it is for me to travel from here down here, time-wise. Now remember, if you're traveling Lagos to, say, Shanghai, it's about 16 hours. So that's how massive the continent is size-wise. Thought to just share that. So let me go specifically into China-Africa trade and some of the things that are changing, economic dynamics that are changing. Currently, Europe is China's largest trading partner. Euro China trade is give or take about $600 billion. Well, 600, $650 billion per annum. And as you can see, it's been growing. It was very large in 2014, but you know, the various issues, and it dropped slightly to just below $600 billion. Now, Africa's trade with China is currently about $150 billion thereabout. It's about a quarter of the trade between China-Europe and China-Africa, so it's about a quarter. However, China-EU trade is much larger at 600 billion. What has been happening is that, and if you see this map, you'd see the growth, you'd notice the growth. What has been happening is that cumulatively, business between China and Europe has been growing at 7% per annum. But business between China and Africa has been growing at 23% per annum. That's almost 3 times, not almost, more than 3 times the value of growth between China and Africa. What this means, and this is what we expect. Now, this trend does not take into cognizance the effect of Brexit and a few other things. What this means is that even if things were to remain the way it is right now, very, very likely, in another 5 to 8 years, Africa will actually be China's largest trading partner. And this is the trend of what is actually happening now. You'll see that growth rate, it's almost like a huge curve going up. If you factor in a few things like Brexit and all that, it might actually happen earlier. My friends in the law profession always tell me, follow the trend. For investors, especially Chinese investors going out, follow the trend. I won't say more than that on that. So, where to invest in Africa? Here are Africa's top 20 markets by economic activity, consumer size, and connections, collated by a data company called Frame. You would notice a few things. In terms of economic activity, it's not very, very clear. But what you would notice is that number 1 is Cairo. So this is more of a city-by-city thing, beyond just country by country now, city by city. Number 1 is Cairo. And then you have number 2 here in South Africa. Then you now have others. I think number 3 is Lagos in Nigeria. So Cairo is in Egypt, Johannesburg in South Africa, and Lagos in Nigeria. One thing that you would notice more is that in this area, there is a huge number of cities with economic activities. Very distinct. So it's not number 1, it's number 3, but you have number 7, number 8, number 10, number 13 in this distinct area. That distinct area is actually Nigeria. And 5 of the top cities by economic activity are actually within that country. And it accounts for 37 of the top cities, so 37 or almost 40% in that one country of the economic activities. Now, I should say this. I am not saying invest in Nigeria. I'm just giving you an idea as to where the economic activities cluster. Because it's important to mention and note that in such economic clusters, you would also face more competition. So it depends on the size of your business and the size of your investment. If you are a smaller fund, then more likely you could go to one of the smaller areas. But if you are a bigger fund or you have more muscle, then you can actually play around in the bigger markets on the continent. Just giving you as well an idea. I use Nigeria because, you know, a lot of people will say China, Africa. That's not a fair comparison because that's a country compared to a continent. Same thing, China, Europe. It's just a way and means of measurement. But really, when you're investing, you would invest more on a country by country or on a city by city basis. I try to just give an example here. Always important, you know, to give case studies, but so that just being generic anyways. Take in the food and beverages industry. You will see that in the total per capita food and alcohol consumption on, in these countries, sorry, you have here, so per capita investment, here you have per capita food and alcohol consumption. So in the UK, it's over 3,000. In Nigeria, it's about 1,000. In Indonesia, it's this. In the highest in terms of per capita is Hong Kong. Spending on food and alcohol consumed at home is about 4,600 USD. So on a per capita basis, Hong Kong has one of the highest, you know, which explains this chart here. But on a total basis, the UK has total consumption of food and beverage at $213 billion per annum. $213 billion per annum. Nigeria, just by its side, has $211 billion in terms of consumption. I'm using food and beverage as an example of the global consumption trends and all. This shows that depending on what you want to invest in will also reflect the country you need to invest in. What to invest in? If you want to invest in retail, for instance, shopping, malls, etc., my response would be different from if maybe you want to invest in financial services or if you want to invest in manufacturing. Basically, the thing is, because the continent itself as a whole is growing and growing very quickly, you have the opportunity to actually invest in multiple industries. LEK just spoke about medical. Huge investments in medical. One of the clients that we just that we're just helping to structure a deal is for a $200 million medical facility in one of the states in Nigeria, for instance. So whatever it is that you want to invest in, there are opportunities, and a lot of them are growing, and they offer returns that are much higher than many of the other outbound or overseas investments that one can currently take or make. So what to invest in? Lots. That's the answer. You can invest in retail, in financial services, in manufacturing, renewables, power, real estate, agriculture, technology, as you like it. There are various opportunities on different things to invest in. Very briefly, I'll just talk about my company, Afriscaper. What Afriscaper does is to create a marketplace, and we help investors. We circulate vetted projects that are investment worthy to various investors across the world. Because of size and because we're trying to consolidate the investment. We focus right now on Nigeria, naturally because Nigeria accounts for about 40% of the economic activity on the continent. So we help companies who want to invest in Africa, and we provide data and information specific to Nigeria currently, and also provide advisory services. We also link such investors or companies with governments, whether it's state governments, local governments, or even the federal government, depending on the agency that is useful for your investment. This gives an overview of what Afriscaper does. So I've tried to keep it short. Of course, we do other things. One of the interesting things that we do now, and part of our partnership with TFE, is that we provide data to our various partners. And in addition, we circulate on a monthly basis various investment opportunities that can come up. So if you would like to be part of our circulation list of exclusive projects, kindly contact me and I can share more information on this. Having said that, thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate your time. I think if there are questions and all that, those can come later. Thank you once again.